What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Tournament Tactics, where we're taking a look at the NFL Divisional Slate for DraftKings and Fanduel purposes. And there's a couple of different ways the slate is broken up. There's a 4-gamer, and then there's 2-gamers. I'm going to kind of give an overview. I think the best way to do it, because which one do you cover? Then we'll give an overview on the 4-game conceptually, and then we'll kind of mention thoughts on the 2-game slate as we go through this. That's the best I could come up with as a way to kind of break this down, because it's the same teams overlapping a couple different things. And, strategies really differ between a 4 and a 2. I think with the 4-game, we could be a little more strategic with what we're doing. So without further ado, I got the crew with me as always. Bobby Millions to my right, 2-time Millie Maker winner. We've got the Shark Lab, Burns, right below here. Burnsy.
Hi, guys.
A man who studies Millie Maker winners the way that, students study biology in school. Made a course of it. And, of course, Josiah's not with us today. Josiah's not with us in mind or body, but he's with us in spirit. So we're out there with you, Josiah, wishing you the best. And he'll be back again soon. But for tonight, he's probably hanging with a gilf. You know what I'm talking about? He's being comforted.
Jeez.
A little that granny comfort. Best. They chased him down, the fan club, after last week. So let's talk about this slate, guys. And I'm going to kind of open up the Dom station and get a look at these 4 games. And, here's the thing. It's the playoffs, and all these teams are good, right? And they're all, the players are good. The quarterbacks are every single quarterback is relevant. And the teams are putting forward their best efforts. And you see it here, listen, all the games. Yeah, obviously this Jaguars Kansas City game has the highest total, 53. But the other 3, they're all kind of the same, 49, 48, 46 and a half on this Cowboys game here. So, I think everybody's kind of in play in a certain sense. So before we kind of get into the individual breakdown, I kind of want to ask you guys, do you feel the need? So let's say we're talking in the overview of a 4-game slate. Do you feel the need to strategic fade like some quarterbacks and just say, you know what, I'm going to go into this picking, 2, 3, 4 of these quarterbacks and let the other ones, I'm just going to avoid them. So do you feel the need to do that? Or, you can spread it out. What's your approach here? Obviously, you can't always be right. We're guessing a little bit, strategic guessing, but you also can't cover every base. So how do you approach mass multi-entry when it comes to a 4 or a 2-game? We've got 8 quarterbacks to choose from. Some really good, some okay, some with some strong recency bias vibes. BobbyWow, how are you dealing with something like that?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm always looking to consolidate a little bit, no matter what size the slate is. So I'm probably going to be in the 3 to 4 quarterback range. So eliminate half of the pool. And for me, it's the 2 best options I'll be in on, and then 2, I'm not sneakier, but 2 lower owned options. So that's kind of how I'm shaking out.
Okay. How about you, Burns? How do you treat a situation like this? I mean, there's some definite quarterbacks that don't fit in the Shark Lab, criterion grouping, some underdogs on the road and things like that. Are you looking at fading some of those?
Yeah, I'm looking to fade probably Dak. I just don't like the matchup for him going out to San Francisco. San Francisco is actually really good against the quarterbacks. The other ones I've been looking at maybe doing a strategic fade is Josh Allen at home against Cincinnati. Cincinnati is an excellent defense, and they've been an excellent defense in the latter part of this the NFL season. So I know he's going to be really high owned. He may not. It depends on the slate. So the 4-gamer, he may not actually be as high owned as he would be in the 2-gamers, especially on that Saturday, the Sunday slate that he's on. So he may not. You may not have to actually fade him in terms of a full fade, but I would be underweight to him. That's how I'm going to approach it.
The one time I said to not play, the one time Singletary has a good game was the one time we were ripping on him. I think you have to strategic fade someone, right? And looking through these games, who I'm not strategic fading? I'm not strategically fading Mahomes because I think he's the best play on this entire slate. One of the nice things about the Chiefs, and Allen is this way too, which is the thing. And Jenna's comment actually, Jenna's comment actually is pertinent to this, but the Chiefs rarely want to run the football. Like they rarely like change their mind about how they play and we're going to run heavy now. We're gonna lean heavy on the run. Like they don't do that. They're just gonna keep throwing and they're gonna keep doing their thing. So looking at this first game, it's 31-point team projection. You're talking 4.5 touchdowns for the Chiefs. To me, Mahomes is the top play overall, but just barely. Mahomes is not projecting. He's projecting about the same ownership. I'm not going to differentiate between 19 and 20%. I'm going to say these three, the top. So this is the ownerships for the 4-game slate, forgetting the 2, obviously. We're looking at the 4. And it looks like Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts, exact same ownerships. Does that make you change your mind about maybe fading some of the Turdley quarterbacks? And maybe with this kind of ownership and ownership this low on the 4-game slate, does this say, maybe I should be fading these obvious plays and just loading up on these less likely to hit plays that are going to be low owned?
I mean, I'm kind of half and half. That's kind of where my strategy is. I really like the idea of being up there with Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, and then I'll come down to a Trevor Lawrence or a Daniel Jones. I can make a case for Dak this week, but that's kind of how I'm playing it, because if you try to get exposure to all 4 of these guys up top, there's no way to get leverage, right? So if you stick with 2 of them right around the field, 20% or so, you can get some significant leverage on a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who I think is in for a massive, massive fantasy performance.
He could be. And again, I'm coming back to it as, my in the 2-game slates, these numbers will be really, really different. And for example, like Dak and Purdy and these guys, they're going to be high owned because it's only 2 and there's 4 to choose from. And so that just always happens. I think to me, when I look at what happened last week, number one, I've got the recency bias tingles happening. And I'm trying to fight it. I feel the pull. It's like the dark side of the force. You try to resist it. You feel it. It's there. You should resist it. Like, logic tells you. But it's hard to resist the power of the recency bias. And I'm feeling that for Brock Purdy, who hasn't had a good fantasy performance. He had it last week, 39. Only dragged 1 wide receiver with him. And we're all talking about, Brock Purdy. Is Brock Purdy going to be the starter? Are they going to get... Listen, let's take it easy, right? Like, what if he actually sucks? I saw Davis Mills have a couple good games last year too, and then he wasn't good afterwards. Like, I don't know what the story is with Purdy, but he's still a young quarterback. And similarly with Dak Prescott, we haven't played Dak Prescott all year. And all of a sudden now I visually, he looked different. He's running the football. He's doing things we hadn't seen in a while. Gave a little bit of that early 2001, that crazy run he went on for 5 games in 2001 or 2000. I got that vibe a little bit in week 1 of the playoffs, but maybe that was just, again, the recency bias pulling me to thinking like Dak isn't a 17 to 22 fantasy point quarterback, which is what he's been all year and all of last year. Like, am I getting sucked in, Burns, here, or does this make some sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, that was against a Tampa Bay team that's kind of been on the outs all year. I was kind of discussing this with somebody this week. I'm like, Tampa Bay is really not the team that has been doing that well this year, because they've been littered with a lot of injuries on both the defense and the offensive fronts. So it's not the same team that we're normally accustomed to seeing. Tom Brady's in his waning years. He's like 46 now. But that aside, I don't know. This San Francisco team is a different team. Their defense is stacked. You got Nick Bosa's on the defensive line. He's going to be all up in Dak's crap this weekend. You know, it's not going to be an easy game for Dak to score what he needs to score to pay off his salary, or even get the raw score to win a tournament.
No, on a regular slate, Burns, to your point, we wouldn't be playing Dak at San Francisco. We'd be like X, right, and that was it. It would just unfriend you, BobbyWow style. It's not how any of this works. I unfriend you. That's what would have happened with Dak, and yet here we are, like, oh, we're gonna play Dak. He scored 39 last week. I don't know. Yeah, he did score 39. Like, that happened, right? We all saw it. He's gonna do it again. He hasn't repeated those kind of performances. He's up against a much better defense. The flip side argument I have for that is San Francisco is hard to run on. So if Dallas is scoring, they might have to do it through the air.
Yeah, but you don't actually have to do any stacks in this game. You could just go with the wide receivers. And I like Dalton Schultz in this game a lot.
I always like Dalton Schultz.
He is going to be peppered with targets in this game because of the fact that Dak Prescott is going to be so pressured in this game, and he's going to have to get the ball off quick. I love the two options I love in this game on the Dallas side is I love CeeDee Lamb in the slot, and I love Schultz. If you want to do a skinny stack with those two and forget about Dak Prescott, so be it. I think that's the way to go.
I like it. BobbyWow, what do you think?
Yeah, I do have some interest in Dak just because he will be the lowest owned guy. So I'm always a sucker for leverage. And he really did. I think you mentioned it, Geek. He looked different last week. I understand the Tampa Bay defense is a shell of what it used to be, but he looked really, really good. And he's got the weapons around him to help carry him to be successful through the playoffs. So interested in Dak. And part of that is you only need 10 to 12% exposure to get 2x on him. I mean, that to me is a worthy cause. So that's where I'm at on Dak.
I'm going to address this. You know, I don't know. I like there's 3 slates this weekend, right? You got a 4 and you have 2 game slates. With 2 game, I think we're going to bring, I did a live stream actually last night where we went over how to set up for a 2 game slate and some of the tricks for the optimizer and how to kind of set up and approach them. And I don't think it didn't require that much analysis because it's more of a technique than it is like a necessary analysis. A couple things I did discover in that live stream that I would share, and you guys, I don't know if Bobby, you guys, and Burns, did you guys watch the live stream from yesterday at all? Did you get a chance to see it?
I did not get to see the one yesterday, but I saw your one from last week, and that was really good. I thought it was right on point.
Yeah. So we're kind of just repeating a little bit of that, and I noticed something when there aren't enough running backs that are viable on the slate, you actually have to go a little bit higher exposure. So that was a little change that I adjusted. Like some of the early ones, they were like, I was kind of happy to have the weird Turdley running backs, and a lot of it in my lineups because it was a weird slate. In this one, there like these teams don't. Some of the teams didn't have like good backup running backs. Like you don't really want Matt Breida or I can't remember, but it was like Matt Breida types or even Samaji Pirine types where I don't want to have too much of that. So in those scenarios, you did have to raise your limits on the running back position just a little bit, or else you end up forcing too much garbage into your lineup. So I found a couple little adjustments because with just 2 games, there are 4 total running backs available essentially that are starters. If you limit them to 50%, you're going to get 50% of it. You need 50% of each, and you won't get them in a flex. So I had to make a little adjustment to that approach on the 2 game. 4 game slate, that's irrelevant. But on the 2 gamer, I noticed, I should and same thing with tight end. Rather than going 40% caps, I kind of raised it to 60% for this slate. Same thing with the tight end position, just raised it up a little bit. Everybody's mad about FanDuel canceling the game. We'll see what happens.
That was a mess.
That really sucked if you only played on FanDuel. That ruined your weekend last weekend. So hopefully that's not the case again. All right, let's dive a little bit deeper into to these position groups here. So I like what you had to say about Dak getting the ball out quickly and hitting the tight end position. Let me ask you guys about Jalen Hurts. He did not look good coming back from the injury in that Week 18 game. They kind of didn't need a whole lot. They didn't need a whole lot out of him. They didn't give him a whole lot to do. He didn't score very well. Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts had the exact same average DK points per game on the season. They're exactly the same guy on the season. They get there a little differently, but they've all three averaged just about the exact same fantasy points per game. Do we feel comfortable that Hurts is fine and use him as normal? Like, any concerns there, BobbyWow?
No, not really for me. I actually think Hurts is going to be a little bit forgotten about. I think that ownership will probably come down a little bit. And I have no issue going back to him. I think Patrick Mahomes is the top dog for sure. So I don't think Hurts rivals him necessarily, but I'll probably end up having more Hurts than Josh Allen.
I 100% agree. I think Jalen Hurts is fine. The one part of this passing offense that I'm really struggling with is, and we saw it last week, and it killed 50 to 60% of the lineups that had Justin Jefferson. I'm really not looking forward to rostering the wide receiver that's going up against Adoree Jackson. He is shut down right now. He came off of an injury. He shut down Justin Jefferson off of an injury. He is going to either shut down Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown in this game.
Which one is it?
Give me a minute and I'll get it for you.
I need to know which one that is.
And while Burns is pulling that up, I like Goddard. I think
absolutely
he's my primary stack piece with Hurts. The Giants struggle against the tight end position, and we know he'll get some consistent targets.
Let's get a look here at the defense numbers here, but I mean, I think I want to stack him with two. So I need the non-Adoree Jackson wide receiver, which I think probably Devontae Smith.
Give me 1 sec here.
Now, yeah, Giants shut him down, but they have not been great in general against wide receivers. Definitely a little soft against tight ends, according to our points against chart here as well. So a lot of ways for the Eagles to score on them. The flip side, the Eagles are very, very good defensively in all categories on the season. As you can see just above our heads here, we've got the Eagles, and they're allowing fewer points than average to every position group. So that's another one. Danny Quarters. What do we do about Danny Quarters? He's looked good. I love how he's running the football. I think you got to play Danny Dimes. I think you got to play him. He's so cheap. He's so cheap to stack. It's no worries at all.
I'm with you.
It's hard to stack him with two. I guess you maybe include Saquon Barkley, but it's hard to stack Dimes with two right now because the Eagles have elite corners on both ends. So weirdly, Rick James in the slot is probably the best of the trio, even though it's been Hodgins who's been the better producer the last few weeks. But Rick James is going to avoid Slay. He's going to avoid Bradbury. That's a good situation for him. And again, I cannot. Burns, I know you want to like Bellinger.
Not this week.
All right, good, because I cannot get down with Bellinger. This dude never gets more than 5 targets. He seems like fool's gold a little bit.
He actually paid off last weekend. So
he got a touchdown, but all right. But with no miraculous touchdown, it's only 3 receptions, 5 targets. It's not enough.
Right. He got 3X, but the guy that would have really paid off his salary had that second touchdown been caught was Knox, man. That was just like prime time was going to happen, but it didn't. He operates, so Adoree Jackson operates 60% of the time on the left side of the field. That's going to be Devontae Smith.
But only 60%. So we really can't.
He's going to move. He's going to move around.
You can't fade based on that. I think what you have to do is just maybe Adoree Jackson maybe he shadowed Jefferson last week. Maybe that was a thing, but like because it was Jefferson. But the Eagles don't have a WR1. Again, look at the salaries. I have an argument. Who's been saying it? DFS Up North has been saying it all season. BobbyWow, you've been watching this. DFS Up North all season long has said, why do we think that A.J. Brown is the number one wide receiver for this team? He says, Slim Reaper, better than A.J. Brown. And we all like, oh, you're crazy. And then I thought about it. I'm like, wait a minute. Slim Reaper's got better draft capital. He was taken in the first round at a higher position. Of course, A.J. Brown's been doing it in the league for a few years, but there's nothing that tells me for sure that A.J. Brown is the number one wide receiver. Maybe it's Devon. Maybe Smith is the number one wide receiver. Could be. Salaries have finally caught up to it. Like on this slate, they're very close in price. It's almost the same price. So that's an interesting one.
So they played each other in week 14. A.J. Brown got 17 DraftKings points. And Devonta Smith got 17.4. And I'm not counting week 18. Nobody played in that game. It was a weird game. It was like a blowout. So I'm not really counting that. I'd rather go with the week 14 game as your baseline for this if you wanted to make a determination between the two.
You know who else crushed in that game?
Miles Sanders.
I don't know that's happening again, but he did.
Yeah, I really do like him in this game. I think he's the overlooked guy. And on the Giants side of the ball, I like Barkley too. He showcased what he can actually do on the football field, but Minnesota's really bad against running backs, and Philadelphia is really good. Except for they do have a couple of issues against pass catching running backs. So that's the way I'm going to go.
It would be interesting to see the Giants adjust their approach in this game because the Eagles have those elite outside corners to a heavier throw some passes to Saquon Barkley game plan, because they haven't done that. They hadn't done that in the last few weeks, but they've done it this year. They've done it the last few weeks. And of course, yes, all the Eagles fans are bringing up Boston Scott and his propensity to get touchdowns against the Giants. And we always laugh at it. And then he gets another one. And we always laugh at that. Like, I've been hearing about Boston Scott against the Giants for 2 years already, and it keeps it going. Pretty impressive. All right, let's go. I think what I want to do here, let's go quarterback by quarterback and kind of talk about different ways to stack them up, both, because this is relevant for both the 2-game and the 4-game slate. So let's just start at the top and kind of work our way down through this group and talk about different ways to stack them up. And you know what? Let's kind of go in a carousel here. I'll take Mahomes, and then Burns, you go talk about Allen, and then Wow, you'll talk about Hurts, and we'll kind of go around these guys. So we'll kind of not repeat ourselves. So I'm looking at Mahomes, and Mahomes is one of the more interesting players to stack because there's so many weapons. He does spread the football around. So the clear-cut primary guy is Travis Kelsey, and there is statistical evidence that when Kelsey smashes, Mahomes always scores more than 30. Like, there is a big-time correlation between Mahomes and Kelsey for some reason that's greater than the correlation with Mahomes and other guys. So, Mahomes, Kelsey, always good. And then it gets interesting. So you got Juju Smith-Schuster, who's extremely hit or miss. 11 targets, 4 targets, 2 targets, 11, 10. Like, his target totals are all over the place. We got Tony, Kadarius Toney, who's, I think, on the ups with this team, but we haven't fully, truly seen it. We've seen him doing well, but on 3 targets, right? We haven't seen volume. Give me a volume game for Kadarius Toney. He will break the slate. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Valdez-Scantling seems more like a hope and a prayer play than anything else to me. And then Jerick McKinnon. And again, Jerick McKinnon is this guy that you want to play, but he either gets you a 6 or a 25. There's no in between with McKinnon. He's only getting 8 or 9 touches most weeks. And then, sometimes they go crazy and sometimes they don't. So for me, Mahomes with 2 every single time, primary Kelsey, secondary one of McKinnon, Toney, Juju, or any of the pass catchers. That's kind of how I'm approaching that one. And I'm probably not going to be looking to stack him with 3 or anything like that. So that's how I'm looking at that one. Burns, take us through Josh Allen.
So with Josh Allen, Cincinnati is pretty stout against the run. I think you're going to see them stop the run in this game. I think you got to pair him up with 2. One of those, they're middle of the pack against wide receivers in their secondary, and then they're also middle of the pack against the tight end position. I think it's another week of Diggs, Knox, and Gabe Davis again. I think you just load up on those 3 guys with Josh Allen, and I think you cover this game very well for Buffalo. I also like Josh Allen. If you really are intrigued by Josh Allen, and we have the 3, Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, and Allen as our top 3 guys, as the high salary range guy, and he becomes your number 1, I think then you're going to rely on him to run one in for a touchdown in and around the goal line. So that's pretty much how I'd approach this game.
Allen +2.
Yep.
I like it. Yeah. Tight player pool. Cole Beasley scored a touchdown last week.
Yeah, that was because iMac was out. So if iMac's out again, you could probably just go right back to Beasley. Allen has always had a rapport with Beasley, so
yeah,
McKenzie will play. So
McKenzie's back.
Interested in Beasley.
Yeah. It's kind of a bummer, actually.
Yeah,
that kind of takes Rashid Shaheed and Beasley and McKenzie out of the mix because there's too many.
Yep.
The slot wide receivers are too many. That's from Braveheart. All right. BobbyWow. Talk to me about Jalen Hurts. Do I need him with 2? Can you even stack him with 2? Is it fine with 1? Is he going to run with the shoulder? Is the shoulder okay? It's so mysterious.
I'm playing this not worried about the shoulder. I think that's the way to go. I would stack him with 1. I'm not forcing 2. I think you might end up getting 2 if you just run the Dom as it is, but I'm at least 1. And I think we talked about already, Dallas Goedert is my favorite target for Hurts. But I'll have a mix of all 3 wide receivers, Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, and I'm going to have some Quez Watkins. He is basically min price, and I'm not going to have a ton, but he's always a guy that's live for a big play, especially as the focus is on Brown and Devonta. So I think it's the same as Bernsey said with Allen. Get a nice mix in there of all 3 wide receivers. Goddard will be my highest exposed pass catcher. And then the only other thing I'm doing is avoiding Hurts with Miles Sanders. I do not like playing those 2 together. So that's how I'm running Jalen Hurts this weekend.
So crazy that how thin running back is on both of these slates, that Miles Sanders becomes like a prominent piece of your planning because you have no choice. It's so bizarre. All right, Burns, now we're getting to, so projections are important. Okay. Don't ignore projections, guys. They're there for a reason. And I think it's noteworthy that both Burrow and Dak, at this moment, we have projected below Jones and Lawrence. They're both more expensive, and we are projecting them to score fewer points. So, again, if I'm looking to force some fades here, I'm probably starting with Dak and secondarily potentially with the Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow has also shown quite an intense ceiling. So with Burrow, it's another easy one for me. I'm gonna talk about Burrow. We'll pass it around. But for Burrow, it's easy. I mean, you got Chase, you got Higgins, you got Boyd, and nothing else. Hayden Hurst. Let me tell you something about Hayden Hurst. Okay, you want to talk about fucking hopium? You want to talk about fucking hopium? People have been smoking the hopium on Hayden Hurst all year. All right, let me tell you something.
Hopium.
Oh, so good. It feels good when it's going in, but the after effect is losing all the time. You know how many good games, how many tournament-worthy performances Hayden Hurst has put up this season? Nothing. 0. I get it. He's a tight end on a team and he can throw a touchdown. Great. But, let's not go crazy. I don't want a lot of Hayden Hurst. This guy, this guy's been outcast from 5 teams already. A first-round draft pick. He's a bust. It's enough with Hayden Hurst. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of him.
Gosh.
6s and 8s all day. And what happened to my Burrow stack? Oh, fuck, it has Hayden Hurst in it. Shit. What? Burrow went up for 35. Burrow scored 48 points. Did I win the tournament? No. Hayden Hurst was in my lineup. He got a 3. That's what happens when you play Hayden Hurst. Sick of him. Sick of him. Sorry. Felt very strongly about Hayden Hurst there. That's why I had to take that one. But when you remove him from the mix, there's only 3 guys left. And then Tyler Boyd ain't that great either. So there's really only 2. I think you almost have to play. If Joe Burrow is winning you the tournament, one of 2 things is happening. But number one is like Jamar Chase is putting up 60 and he's carrying Burrow with him just solo, or Chase and Higgins are both having a day and Burrow is putting up 35. That's it. If Burrow puts up 25, it doesn't matter what the other guys did because you ain't winning shit because he only put up 25. So Burrow getting you a 35, that means 4 touchdowns. Who's getting him? P. Ryan? Maybe it's P. Ryan. You know, there's some alt scenarios, but for the most part, I think Burrow for me is Chase and Higgins together. Mix in a little Boyd. Maybe don't worry so much about Hayden Worst.
Jeez.
I'm just going to tell you something. I made that up on the spot. That is a fresh new nickname. Hayden Worst. Everybody loves when I go on a rant because then that player always goes off that week, by the way. So, you know, if you ever wanted a reverse jinx on Hayden Hurst, you're welcome. All right. BobbyWow. T-Law. Probably the best cheap guy. Or is it Jones? I love me some T-Law.
I love T-Law. One quick note on Burrow. I think Burrow is another guy, a skinny stat candidate. They just ruled out 2 offensive linemen for the Bengals. He is going to be under fire all day. And I think that brings Boyd back into the equation, slot guy. And I think, Geek, the P. Ryan mention is huge. P. Ryan's going to be way under-owned in this game. They're going to need to throw the football to him. So I think from a PPR standpoint, it's a dream matchup for Boyd and P. Ryan. So don't like Burrow. I do like some skinny stacks, though.
Let me add to that. So not a lot of people know this. Joe Mixon is one of the worst pass blocking running backs in the National Football League, according to PFF. The reason that P. Ryan is in the game as much as he is most of the time is because Mixon either can't or refuses to pass protect well. So P. Ryan, if Burrow's under pressure, a lot of times out goes Mixon, in comes P. Ryan because he will block for you. So,
and you might think in a normal game, like Joe Mixon's getting an 80-20, 85-15 snap. No, not at all. We're seeing 55-45. It's really close. And like you said, in a game like this where they need the blocking, they need the pass catching, you're going to see P. Ryan more than normal would be my guess.
I like it. All right, so let's talk a little T-Law. And let me I was impressed. So Lawrence comes out last week, and he looks like Lawrence of 2021. Like he looked a mess out there in the first half of the game. Let's keep it real. You know, it's a pressure spot. And what do we learn about? So what? Let me start here. What's the takeaway from that? Are we taking away? So I could think of 2 things that are takeaways: a positive and a negative. And my half full brain is saying, "Wow, this kid persevered. He came through. Comes out in the second half, fucking leads that team to a win. What a beast. We've got a real, Joe Cool. He's our next, great quarterback. It's happening right before our eyes. Like that's my glass half full. My glass half empty is, damn, this kid's got some mental shit going on that he comes out and falls apart in the first half of a playoff game. I like to be the half full. I think the recovery is more important, what we saw last week, than sort of the meltdown early. But this is psychology. Like, who are you going to ask? I'm not a psychologist. I'm just an idiot who likes playing fantasy football. I don't know. BobbyWow, what do you think?
Yeah, we can't forget that it was his first career playoff game. I mean,
yeah,
the emotions going through his head, the buzz, everything. That to me that's what you chalk it up to. So my brain is full on Trevor Lawrence. And maybe the best part about Trevor Lawrence is he's got nothing to lose, right? This is all free cheese at this point. He won his first playoff game. He's got his swag. He put up big numbers. I think he's the real deal. And so he's kind of going in this game saying, you know what, if we lose, we lose. That's kind of what everyone thinks is going to happen. But it's a great matchup against a poor Chiefs defense, a hot quarterback that feels like he can conquer the world. I love Trevor Lawrence. He will be up there as my highest exposed QB this week. That's how much I love him.
I like it. You're paying down. And what's fun about Trevor Lawrence is the stack partners that you're getting with him are inexpensive. So again, you could stud up your lineup. Yes. When you've got Zay Jones, so we've been all over Zay Jones. Evan Ingram has been spectacular. Zay Jones, we've been all over Zay Jones all year long. I mean, I feel like that's a bandwagon I'm not ready to get off of anytime. I'm riding it to the end. And then, and Kirk, and all three of them, and by the way, it's another team where there's only three guys. It's really easy to stack with two of them. Marvin Jones Jr. aside, he's kind of the extra. He's the Quez. He could do it. But like, there's really just three prime guys, and you really want two of the prime guys in your lineup, I would say. They do not throw to Etienne. Etienne's not sucking up any receiving touchdowns. That doesn't happen, or it's unlikely to happen. They don't throw to him very much. So, I like the T-Law thing. And I just want to point out, by the way, and I'm going to live a little pat on the back. Aside from giving out Jaguars pregame and betting Jaguars last week, and we bet we over in Sharp app. I also bet the Cowboys have crushed it, easy money. I thought that was one of the easiest bets I've ever made. Definitely the easiest bet of the year. All the people fooled by Tom Brady and the name rather than watching the games. But we were grabbing Jaguars live at plus 22 at halftime in that game. And I was like, oh man, I don't normally like to, chase a team that's falling apart, but sometimes teams go into halftime, they come out refreshed. And the big reasoning for it last week is more the Chargers. They always melt down in the second half of games. It's been a pattern with them all year. So I was like, we can just get on the Jaguars here, but I did not expect them to win and come back and win that bet. I thought like there was a chance, but to win the game, hell no, that was crazy. So if you want to check out Sharp app and get the bets, we got a sucker bet or two all ready to go for this weekend slate of games. You can go to sharp.app and use promo code ARMY. You will get a free month of Sharp app with the Discord, the community, get the picks from all the pros, John Statsational, Alessia, Anthony, all these really great cappers. I'm in there giving my donkey sucker bets, but they keep winning. So I'm going to keep going with it. They keep crushing as well, but also the incredible tools on the app itself, the betting handles, data, the AI-driven models across every single sport, the top props tool. There's so many awesome things going on at Sharp app. So make sure you guys go take your free month. If you're watching this video, you are entitled to it as a DFS Army YouTube subscriber. Just use promo code ARMY on sharp.app and you get a free month to check it out. We're in the playoffs. This is a good time. We'll get a Super Bowl bet. We got it all covered. So last two quarterbacks. Burns, talk to me about Daniel Jones here. And we already kind of mentioned, I like Jones. He's running the football 70 yards, 90 yards last couple of weeks. I mean, this dude is doing it with his legs. He's got the roll of quarters in his pants at this point. He's walking around, chest puffed out, like boy into a man.
Yeah, he's not going to do what he did last week against the Philadelphia Eagles. He'll be around the 20-point range on DraftKings this week. He can get you there with his legs. His primary pass catcher that he's been targeting nonstop is Isaiah Hodgins. He's been looking at him all the time. Isaiah Hodgins blew up last weekend against the Minnesota Vikings. It was to be expected. Everyone's optimizer had Richie James. It was the $200 lower than Hodgins that pushed him up to be the highest point per value guy on the slate. But it turned out to be Hodgins, and Darius Slayton also had a decent game. I mean, he didn't have Isaiah Hodgins' game, but he had a decent game. So for me, it would be if you want to go with Daniel Jones, the stack partner is obviously Isaiah Hodgins in this game, and then secondary option is going to be Darius Slayton on the wide receiver side of things. And then I actually really like Saquon Barkley in this game again as a stacking partner with Daniel Jones. Or you could just do a skinny stack with Isaiah Hodgins and Barkley and be done with it.
I did speak to Anthony about the game, and they're going crazy in Philadelphia. I would not want to be a Giants fan. All I'm saying is, if you're a Giants fan, it's good to be a Giants fan. Don't go to the game.
Oh, I'm not going to the game. I'm not going to Philadelphia, but I'll watch the game. It's in prime time, but I'm not. I told people this week, I go, all I want to see is like if the Giants can keep it around 10 points or less, I'll be ecstatic. Anything above that, I'll be like, oh, well, it's just the Giants, you know? So yeah, that's kind of how I'm approaching it.
You know, like talent, players, these things matter. You know, Giants have gotten there on incredible coaching and just like a will to live in I think what was a fortunate first week draw against an overrated Vikings team. But like, this is the Eagles. This is a team that they're supposed to go to the Super Bowl this year, right? They're destined for greatness this year. They should be able to get the job done against the Giants team that doesn't have a name brand wide receiver.
Yep.
And doesn't have a great defense either. Like, what's good about them? When you think about it, it's not that much. They just scrapped their way here, and I love it. I'm there for it. But like Danny Dimes being scrappy is not enough. That's not Super Bowl. I guess they did with Eli, but they had a great defense back then. They don't have that this week. So the last game, BobbyWow, and the last situation, Brock Purdy. And I'm telling you, my recency bias tingles are going crazy. They're tingling all over. I want to play Purdy. He scored 39. He scored 36. Makes me want to play him, BobbyWow. But I don't know if that's the smartest move. What do you think?
Can I tell you the first thing I did when I opened the Dom station? I unchecked Brock Purdy.
You did.
I am not wasting a single percentage point of exposure on Brock Purdy. I'm just not.
That's why you got the money bag scoliosis from carrying all those bags of cash from the millions. Keep winning. You got big balls. It's part of it.
It's impossible to convince me that Brock Purdy is going to outscore Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence. And they're essentially the same price. I mean, even Dak. So to me, I'm going to load up on McCaffrey and just wipe my hands of the Brock Purdy thing, because the 49ers, they could score a decent amount of points and Brock Purdy could still not finish well. So unchecked. That's it. That's the extent of Brock Purdy for me this weekend.
Now, even in the 2-game slate, I just want to clarify this.
Even in the 2-game slate, unchecked. I like it even more in the 2-gamer because it's more leverage.
Strategic fade is more powerful in a 2-gamer than it is in a 4-game slate. So taking Purdy off the table is, I agree. I don't think the guy's putting up 18, 17, 12, 15, and then all of a sudden he gets for 40. That's not happening. If it happens again, you know what? I'll accept it.
Tip the cap.
Accept it. But, you know, it's super unlikely. So with that being said, I still like pieces from the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey. And people ask, is it smart to play McCaffrey and Devo in the same? Yes, sure. Why not? But you don't need Purdy in that lineup. I like it. So a little bit of fading, but I like the players on San Francisco. It's fine. But you're right. The other thing is they're up against Dallas. Dallas is a good defense. And Dallas is playing good defense now. San Francisco, they're a defensive team. They play good defense. Will they shut each other down this week? I don't know. But is it a higher likelihood that they're kind of playing a nasty field goal driven, sort of like both teams playing pretty decent defense in this one and the score's kind of low? Yeah, that's more likely to happen when the defenses are good. Like, you know, like when the defenses are bad, that's less likely to happen. These are good teams with good defenses. Let's respect it. So I like that approach. I like it a lot, actually. Let's see here. All right, so let's shift over. We talked about the quarterbacks on the slate. Let's talk a little bit about the running back position. And, you know, it's funny how many can show on the screen. It's like 6 or 7 can show on the screen here. And that's about it. Like, you know, there's not too many viable defenses, even on the 4-game slate. Forget about when you break it down into 2. But, you know, starting at the top, Christian McCaffrey, I think we all would agree, is a really good play on a slate where there's not a lot of certainty, right? Like 2-game, 4-game. How much Christian McCaffrey can I go? Like on the 2-game slate, BobbyWow, is it okay to break rule, go like 70, 80% CM sizzles and say, you know what, YOLO, this guy, even on his bad days, is getting you 16 to 20. And that might be the highest scoring running back out of all of these names.
If you're willing to be risky and you're trying to take down a tournament, I think on a 2-game slate, you're either 100% or 0% McCaffrey. That's the way I see a guy like him. So if you're trying to take down a tournament on a 2-gamer, that's where I'm at. You got to be all in or all out. That's the way I see it, at least.
You know what's funny? In my back testing, it didn't make a difference in score. Sometimes the top score went down. I was just back testing literally last week's slate, and I'd be like, all right, what if I did 60% McCaffrey? What if I did 100%? And 100%, my scores didn't go up. It was the strangest thing, just because you just need to hit that one lineup and just the way it happens. But I thought it was pretty surprising. I was like, wow, even at 100%, I actually didn't improve my. I was trying to reproduce the nuts, effectively the Millie Maker winner. I could not reproduce it. I kept getting 124 or something. Like I was within a couple points. I was like second place, no problem, but I could not replicate the first place without like super cheating or kind of like really cheat coding it in a way that I would never normally do. But Burns, are you on board with that? 100% all or nothing on CM Sizzles?
No, I'm taking more of a midline approach with him. Seeing that, the 40% global max is always pretty good. Last week I went with a 65% exposure to him and Eckler, and it actually paid off pretty well. So that's probably the approach I'm going to take with him and Barkley, or I'm not really into ETN at that 29%, but that's probably the way I'm going to approach both Barkley and McCaffrey.
And just to clarify, the all or nothing is on a 2-gamer for me, not the 4-gamer. Just to clarify.
Yeah, that'd be a 2-game. Yeah, definitely a 2-game strategy. Although this 4-gamer, there's some merit to it also. I'm going to tell you, because as we start to go through this group, you're going to see it's not that sexy. It's unsexy.
It's not.
Yeah, it's actually pretty rough.
It's rough. So I think we all. So here's my negative for Saquon Barkley, and you guys have mentioned Saquon Barkley positively. I'm going to tell you something about Saquon that concerns me. His historic splits in games his team loses is not very good. Like, he has not produced well in losses, and this looks like a loss. So that's a concern. Like, this is a 5-year record where if we had like the splits tool that I could put on screen, which we don't, and I can't, you would see that Saquon Barkley much, much better when his team is favored and his team wins. Now, this is the playoffs. I don't know how much it all matters. They might throw to him a little bit more in this game because of the way the defenses work out. So maybe it's fine. But I think it's noteworthy that there is a reasonable path to kind of a fail for Saquon here, to where I definitely wouldn't want to be all in on him. Then it kind of gets worse from there. Joe Mixon, no, right? Like, he has one game this year with a score that you needed to help you win a tournament out of 19 or out of 18 so far. Only one. He's getting a 55% snap share. We already talked about the pass rush likely meaning a little extra P Ryan for the pass protection. I don't like it. Travis Etienne, why don't they throw BobbyWow? Why don't they throw to this guy?
I don't know. It is perplexing. They have at times, but he will disappear from the passing game, and it doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I can't understand it. He's also a pass catching running back. He has bona fides from college as a pass catching running back. It's the most bizarre thing ever, but got to accept it. I like ETN here. I don't hate it.
Yeah, but it's going to be difficult for him to pay off because, they're going to have to keep up with the Kansas City in this game. Kansas City is going to be all out air raid in this game, and Jacksonville's got to keep up. And if they're not utilizing ETN in passing down situations, I don't know if he can get there. I don't know. They could they could shut him down, and then it's just the Zay Jones, Kirk, and Ingram show.
Listen, ETN can get there. He can pop one for a touchdown. He can get 2 touchdowns just by over the course of a game where a lot of touchdowns are scored. Like, he can get there. But the floor is low because, is that what you said? I mean, 3 targets at most on the season, 2 receptions, 20 yards. That's 4 points. You know,
I mean, so I'll just put it in perspective for you. Week 10, these 2 teams played, and they were in Kansas City. 10.3 DraftKings points is what ETN had. That's not going to do it. That's not going to get it done.
And that's to be expected. A couple of receptions, no touchdowns, 70 yards rushing, and that's where you end up. It's tricky.
The guy that might be actually under the radar in this game as a running back who could actually pay off by just having like a few receptions out of the backfield. Maybe he gets 20, 30 yards is Hasty in the backfield for Jacksonville.
Whoa.
That's way low owned guy. And that's like way off the radar of anybody. And so he could actually have a little bit, like, I'm not saying go all out on this guy. I'm saying like 5% ownership, and you could be way over the field.
BobbyWow, that's a showdown name. You know, that's like Mr. Turd Showdown guy, Jermichael Hasty.
That's wild. I love it. I don't know that I'll play much, but it's bold.
Feel like a showdown play. But part of that is look how gross it is. And we're looking at the 4 game. When you break this down by 2, it's even scarier at running back, where I don't think, and somebody here, Brian here in the chat mentioned that Barkley hasn't frequently paid off on his salary, and he hasn't. Barkley was effectively somebody we faded for most of the season at running back because he was priced as a 32-point ceiling. 8K is a 32-point ceiling, when realistically his ceiling was more like 20 on the season. It kind of went different. So he didn't have the way DFS is priced here. You want to break it down by some simple math. It goes like this. Their salary is designed so that once every 4 games, they'll hit like a ceiling game. It's supposed to be a 25% occurrence that they'll get you 4x salary. It's 1 out of 4 times. So that's how they're designed. If Barkley wasn't getting you there 1 out of 4, these guys who don't get there, even the 1 out of the 4, those are the ones who are priced incorrectly. And that's what it was with Barkley all season. But the flip side here is all these running backs are so shit that he probably doesn't need a 4x. He just needs to kind of get you 20, and that might be enough, regardless of the price. So continue on. So a couple of names here. Tony Pollard. This is not a good matchup, but I do think it's a much better matchup for Pollard than it is for Zeke. BobbyWow, do you think that Dallas will know this and make a game plan to say, you know what? Are we really going to run Zeke up in the gut of the toughest run defense in the National Football League? Like, is that a smart move, or should we game plan a heavy dose of screens to Pollard?
You certainly could see more screens. I think the Cowboys, they know they're going to have to try and establish the run. They can't just come out and throw the ball 50 times, 60 times. So I think we see a similar split with these guys, 50-50-ish, honestly. Does that mean Pollard can't get there? No, I think he could totally get there. But to me, this game feels like the one that could turn into a sloshy, grinding affair, low-scoring affair. So not my favorite. I'll probably be around the field, if not a little underweight on Tony Pollard.
Burns, are they going to game plan Tony Pollard some action here or no?
No. San Francisco is the number 1 defense against pass-catching running backs. They're the number 1 defense in the NFL against short passing down situations. No, they're not going to go. This is not a Pollard game. This is not a Zeke game. This is you pass up the middle to CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz game. That's the only way that they're going to move the ball against San Francisco in this game.
I love the confidence of the call, and I agree with it. I don't like Zeke. I think you can full fade him. I don't like Pollard here. On the 2-game slate, again, there's no other options. It's crazy, but you got to find someone else. It's not a good spot. McCaffrey, great. And then James Cook. You know what I mean? Like, it might be McCaffrey and James Cook. So
could be Singletary too. I mean, he could see it. I know you hate him, but
I'm not a D Sizzles guy, man. I like him.
yeah, but he's like that guy that nobody thinks about anymore, and then all of a sudden, guess what? Boom, he's there, and you're like, God damn it, why didn't I play him? No.
Or he doesn't do it. I don't know. So
it's one of the two.
Jerick McKinnon, we already talked about a little bit. Listen, Jerick McKinnon's going to be hit or miss. He's that's it. He's going to catch some passes, but I did not like the third running back being mixed in now. Yeah, freaking Ron John got a lot of touches last week. The hell was that? Reminded me of when that Gore guy, Derek Gore, came out and who is this guy? Why did he have 20 carries today? Who the fuck is Ron John, and why is he in the game? What the hell happened last week, BobbyWow? I don't understand it.
I don't know. I'm a Ron John guy, so I don't want to talk about this. Burnsy, you can cover it.
You're really going to play Ron John this week?
I'm not going to play Ron John, no, but no, absolutely not.
Do you think that was because it was week 18? I don't know, man. And they were trying to save McKinnon and I don't know, and Pacheco. I don't know.
There are two guys that I'm willing to be bold with and be well over the field with down here that I'll have 15 to 20% exposure to. And one of them we talked about is P. Ryan. The path is there for him. The crazy Burnsy call, the Jermichael Hasty type call for me is Kenny G. I think Kenneth Gainwell is a dark horse for this weekend.
Yep.
People like Boston Scott. It's got the narrative there. Kenny Gainwell's been getting 30% of the snaps. He's been touching the ball, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a game. I think that's a guy that could end up, breaking one loose and finding his way into the optimal lineup. That's my diamond in the rough.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, he's a pass catcher. He could take one to the house, more like almost like a Turdley wide receiver that gets 3 receptions but takes one of them to the house. It's a slim path for the good game from Gainwell, but I'll allow it.
And just to give a little peek behind the strategy, when we're looking at super value guys or when we're looking at deep punts, for me, my criteria is volume. If we can get a guy down here who's on the field 30, 35, 40% of the time, like P. Ryan, who's actually there more, and Gainwell, those are the shots I want to take on these sleepers.
Yep, absolutely.
I wish they threw to him a little bit more. If he could get a couple more targets, something to really give me that confidence. But yeah, I hear you. Listen, on an ugly slate for running back, we just went through the whole thing pretty much. Again, it's really hard to pick a second one. All right, McCaffrey, fine. But then every other one of these is kind of flawed. Miles Sanders, we talked about earlier, just as being someone who can get there. I mean, he had a great game against the Giants in the first game. Yeah. And yeah, you're going to have exposure to Miles Sanders. But yeah, again, look at the matchups tool. Miles Sanders, 57% of the snaps, 40%. He's not getting all the snaps. He rarely gets a target. And when the team forgets about him, it's almost like they're very games plan specific about when they're going to use him and when they're not. When they're not, they just don't, and that's it. But that first Giants game, man, they used him. Could that be predictive? Should we look at that and go, you know what? Why wouldn't they do that again? Teams kind of do the same thing. So yeah, I like Miles Sanders a little bit as well. Pacheco, I think Pacheco with the emergence of Ron Jones Jr. it's kind of pointless. No, what's he bringing to the table at this point? A 3-man committee, yardage and touchdowns only. It's not a good scene.
Yeah, you're not going to play Pacheco at the same price as Miles Sanders. No. At least I'm not.
No, and he hasn't done anything the last 3 weeks of the season where everybody was like, it's the Pacheco week. It's the Pacheco week, not McKinnon, and then he failed. He basically failed.
Yeah, definitely. The other names that come up, we talk about Singletary a little bit. I like Cook more than Singletary. I like that he's lower owned. I like that he's cheaper and he gets more use. So if you take a look at Buffalo, the splits here are getting closer. Cook was on the field a little bit less than Singletary last week, but got more carries. Now, I don't know if that was just a fluke or what the story was, why that happened, but it seems that Cook is just maybe a little more explosive a player. I'm not really sure, but I'll lean Cook because he's cheaper and because he seems to be getting more use and work than Singletary right now. Like, that's all I can go by. Finally, we've got, let me bring this over again. Yeah, and finally after that, it's Eli Mitchell and some of the turds. I feel like you can get leverage on the one game slate by just having like 4 or 5% of any of these guys. Like, if you want Samaje Perine leverage, BobbyWow, on the 4 game slate, like 5%, 7% exposure, and you're very levered to the field.
Yeah, I think so. I'm probably 10 to 15% range, but yeah, I agree.
You'd be way over the field at those levels. Way over the field. All right, so let's talk wide receiver position a little bit and kind of go from the top. And Burns, I'll throw back to you guys. Did we miss anybody? Do you have any sticky plays that we didn't talk about? Running back, I think we covered them all. Yeah,
I don't think I have any more than that.
Yeah, me neither. All right, so let's talk a little wide receiver and top end of the range. Here you got the stud zone: Smith, Lamb, Brown, Diggs, and Chase. And that's a grouping for me. Look at the price drop from Smith. This is more important than anything else. Notice the price drop from Smith to Christian Kirk. It's $1,200. There is a gap here of $1,200 in salary. That's a significant gap down. So it's going to be interesting to see how lineup construction comes together due to that, because that's a big kind of chunk of real estate. And it kind of forces you, whenever you have anything more than 6 but less than 7, to default to Kirk, Higgins, and Samuel, who I like. So fine by me. I'm happy to play any of those guys. But that's kind of what's going to happen a lot. So in the stud zone, can you differentiate these guys at all? And that's really my prime question. I have a little differentiator that I would mention, but what are your thoughts, Burns, on the stud zone here? Do you have a big differential between any of these guys? Just like, I don't care if it's Lamb or Brown or Diggs, it's all the same shit, and I like them.
I'm actually kind of surprised that they have Jamar Chase is the highest salaried guy on the slate. I was actually expecting it to be Stephon Diggs because the matchup is better. It's a perceived better matchup. Chase is going to go up against Tre'Davious White. So Diggs has got a bit of a better matchup. So on paper. So I was a little intrigued by that. But I actually think that Chase can take the top off this Buffalo defense. It's ripe it's ripe. I mean, we talked about it last week with Miami. There were a couple of plays in that game against Buffalo where, Waddle nearly took off the top off of this defense. And had he done that, he probably would have been the highest scoring wide receiver on that slate. So I really think that Chase can do it here. I think he's got the incredible athletic ability that you look for a wide receiver that can take the top off of a defense. Then for me, I would have to go Diggs in the same game, as primarily being the guy that I'm probably going to roster second. If I had to pick between just these 7,200 to 7,800 guys, then I'm going to jump down. I'm actually going to jump down to Lamb. And then I go Smith, and then I go AJ Brown. That's how I would rank these guys for my.
One fascinating thing I noticed about Jamar Chase in particular, and we think of him we kind of have this thought of him as more like a bit of a volatile stud. This dude has had double-digit targets, I think, in all but 3 games this year. He is no joke when it comes to volume, and it was really polar opposite for CeeDee Lamb, for example, who is not a consistent double-digit targets guy by any stretch of the imagination. So I was kind of looking at, all right, from the comfort zone, the high targets guy, it's like Chase and actually Devonta Smith and then Diggs and then Brown and then Lamb. Lamb is the least likely to get double-digit targets out of any of these guys. And it's just the way the offenses work. Like, you know how the Cowboys are. Every once in a while, it's just like Schultz getting 11 targets, and they don't throw that much. They're trying to run it most weeks, and so it's just how their offense is. Diggs, again, it's a similar situation where the Bills just have a few other guys to throw to. The team that has no one else to really throw to, it's much more the Bengals. They have Chase, and again, it's Chase and Higgins, and Boyd never gets more than 6 or 7 targets in a game. So it's usually, if Burrow throws 35 or 40 passing attempts, that's Chase getting 12 to 15 of them. That's Higgins getting 8 to 12 of them, and that's just how that tends to go. So I really like Jamar Chase as one of my favorite. It's funny because I like Chase a lot more than I like Burrow. BobbyWow, why is that? I don't like Burrow that much, but I do love Chase. What's going on?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, the skinny stack in this game is the way I'm going. I am nervous about the offensive line situation. And I think the Bills defense comes out with a chip on their shoulder with the game against the Bengals again. So Jamar Chase, I do like Chase, but even with him, the concern is Burrow gonna have enough time to take the top off the defense? So I'm with you though on not liking Burrow, and I will have combinations of Chase, Higgins, Boyd, and P. Ryan. So that's the way I love the skinny stack on the Bengals side of the football.
Yeah, I'm about it too. And again, Chase 12 targets plus almost every week that he's been healthy. That is a number when a stud wide receiver gets that many targets, they're going to produce. That's just what happens. And moving on to what I'm calling tier 2 here, which is Kirk, Samuel, and Higgins, and we can tier these guys based on salary levels. I like all 3 of them. I love Kirk. I love Debo. Debo looks like the guy that Brock Purdy likes the most right now. I don't know if that will continue, but he looked that way last week. And then T. Higgins. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. This guy was 7,200 like last week. And now he has one bad game or mediocre game, and it wasn't even that bad. And now he's down in the $5,800 zone. DraftKings does this. They want to make the players more affordable. They want to make it fun to make lineups. In the playoffs, they reduce the salaries across the board. But Higgy Smalls, I'm liking the number, liking the price. And I like that. I think people will not be on him. Note that he sort of shows the lowest ownership projection of this trio for good reason, but also not so much for good reason. Like he has just as much upside as Debo or Kirk, if not more. I love all 3.
Yeah, he's going up against Dane Jackson, who is a very beatable corner. So Higgins is at 5,800. I mean, gosh, was he even that low earlier in the season this year?
Nope.
Yeah,
this is the cheapest
crazy
by far.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I like the matchup based point here, which is if Trey White is going to be focused on Jamar Chase, which is not 100%, but likely.
Yeah.
Then that leaves Higgins open a little bit. BobbyWow, what'd you think of Debo, man? He's back off injury, and last week he puts up an old school Debo, that's my bike punk smash game, like what we're used to see.
Yeah, I like Debo a lot. I mean, feels too cheap for Debo, in my opinion. Had 9 targets, put up a massive score last week. He's a guy that will get some running attempts as well. So, I think the path is there for Debo. He's one of my favorite plays in that game. And just to go back to it really fast, CeeDee Lamb and AJ Brown are my favorite in that top 4 guys.
All right.
I love CD. The 49ers are perceived like an incredible pass defense. They're weak against wide receivers in terms of fantasy points allowed. So I love going to the CD Lamb well. But yeah, I think Debo Samuel is firmly in play in this price range. That feels like a misprice to me.
Wait till you see Ayuk's price.
Ayuk's price is crazy, man.
Yeah.
He dropped a ball in the end zone last week. It's like,
by the way, that's the one that cost me the nuts. Don't get me started.
Sorry to hear that, man.
I had Purdy +2, And I needed Ayuk. I needed Ayuk to get me there. And I was like, no. Oh, it was so close.
I like Ayuk this week too. I mean, you could if you can't get the CMC right in a lineup, but you want to roster a San Francisco guy or two or a skinny stack, I do not mind rostering Debo and Ayuk in the same lineup as a skinny stack. I think it's a great way to go. It's perfect.
And Debo could run one in. I mean, there's other ways that he can score that don't involve the quarterback getting points.
My guy this week for tight ends that I am like Mark Andrews week again from last week, it is Kittle this week. I am not high on Kittle this week at all. I think Dallas shuts him down. And I think you're going to see a lot of ownership on Kelsey this week, and rightfully so. He is the top tight end on the slate. He's got the top tight end matchup on the slate, but you're going to see that 30 to 40, even higher ownership on this guy. But I do not like Kittle at all this week. I think he gets shut down.
A little strategic Kittle fade. He's also in a weird salary spot that doesn't really, it's not very conducive to using him. You either want to kind of pay off for Kelsey or pay some of these studs that are in the $4,200. Like there are studs for cheap. Like, don't really need Kittle so much. BobbyWow, we're in tier 3 of the wide receiver group. Juju, Ayuk, Isaiah Hodgins, Gabe Davis, love him. Zay, love that. We got Slayton and Kadarius, all these great plays. So I don't know how to differentiate between this group. There's certain I like a little bit more, certain I like a little bit less, certain I like only in stacks. But how are you kind of breaking this up?
Oh man, there's a lot of good plays here. I mean, we talked about Ayuk. You mentioned Gabe Davis. I love Zay Jones. I think he might have the highest ceiling in this group. I mean, Davis as well, but Zay Jones has been so good this season. We come back to him again and again. So I'm going back to Zay Jones, and then I'm gonna sneak down the list a little bit. I think Boyd and Gallup are my next two favorite guys. I mean, Gallup. I think we mentioned a couple weeks ago that Gallup seems to be kind of reintegrating well to this offense. He had another solid week last week, and look at that price tag. I think he had 5 or 6 catches last week, found the end zone. If he puts up the same score or similar, he's in the optimal lineup below 4K. So talked about Boyd in the slot, given the offensive line woes. I like him, but man, does Gallup not feel too cheap?
Oh, I love Gallup there. You're getting a WR2 for a team that is going to have to throw more than usual because you can't really run against the 49ers. This is the WR2. And again, he's priced here with a WR3, a WR4, kind of a rando, a WR3. So he is the 2. It's a misprice. He should be up here in the WR2 zone, in the 5K zone. These are WR2s. Why is this one 3,800? So yes, I mean, from a opportunity, from a role on the team perspective, from a time on the field point of view, everything about Gallup says, yeah, that's a great spot, and he's really undervalued. And let's see what the projection likes him more than some of the other WR3s, but still loves Rick James the most of all in this zone, and it's not close. Burns, it's not close.
Yeah, I know.
I don't blame the projection model. I think
I
it's
don't
correct.
either. He's probably going to be the guy this week. Everybody thinks it's going to be Isaiah Hodgins. Isn't that the DFS way, though? He was the guy that was popping on the
chase it.
Yeah. He was popping on the DS or every other optimizer in the industry because he was 3,800, 3,900 last week, and Hodgins blows up, and now they're like, oh man, I got to go get my Hodgins FOMO. Well, guess what? Hodgins is probably going to get shut down in this game.
Hodgins is going up against Darius Hayward Slay. I mean, come on.
It's not a good matchup.
That's not a good matchup at all. So, you go right back to Rick James. I think you go right back to it. You have to ignore what happened last week. You can't even pay attention to it. I do want to mention Kadarius Toney. We talked about him before, but I think the team is scheming some looks for him, and he's doing a lot with those looks. In order for him to win us the tournament, outside of being like a standard stack with Mahomes piece, but like a standalone tournament winner, they need to up his workload a little bit. There's a hopium component to like hoping that will happen when we don't have no reason to believe it will or it won't. We've seen nothing to imply that will be the case, but I got a little hopium that they increase his role and just like he can smash. Saw it last year in a couple games with the Giants that he tore up slates. And yeah, I totally agree with you on Gallup here. And that's kind of where my interest in the wide receiver group ends. McKenzie, whatever. Quez, these are all kind of like stack guys with their quarterbacks that you get a little bit of exposure, more so on the 2 game than on the 4 game. BobbyWow, any thoughts on this group?
McKenzie and Quez, you mentioned those are my 2 punts in this range. I think the New York Giants wide receivers are traps. I think all 3 of them are traps. But I think
they're so cheap. How could you? They're a trap. I'm walking right into it. Like there's a little piece of cheese. I want that cheese.
That's the thing for me is they're cheap, but so is Michael Gallup. So is Tyler Boyd. Zay Jones all these guys are cheap. So that's kind of where I'm at. But yes, the 2 guys you mentioned are the 2 punts for me, and Watkins and McKenzie.
One other name. It's really 2 other names to throw out there, just so that they got mentioned. Justin Watson is getting real snaps for the Chiefs, and he's out there looking like you always think it's Kelsey. I don't know why he's kind of like a giant wide receiver or something. I feel like Justin Watson's very large. It looks like a tight end out there, but he's getting bombs, and if he catches one of them, he could easily break a slate open. And the other guy is Noah Brown, who had a 16 target game this year. And so he's the WR3 for the Cowboys. He is still the WR3, even with T.Y. Hizzles being mixed in for 20-30% of the snaps. If you take a look at the matchups, you will note that, Brown is still on the field quite a bit. Looks like last week, actually, it was pretty even split here. So for the season, 70%, but man, Hilton, all right. You know what? I'm not sure I can see another 16 target scenario here. If he's only going to be on the field 40% of the time, that's not less than ideal, but it's worth a mention here. I definitely, though, particularly think Justin Watson is that sneaky turd that that really could go forgotten. Maybe again, more of a 2-game slate than a 4-game slate. Man, the chat is really big on Boyd. I mean, a lot of Boyd mentions in the chat. By the way, guys, as you're watching along, let us know who are your favorites in tier 1, in tier 2. We're breaking them down by tiers, tier 3 and tier turd.
Boyd and P. Ryan is my Millie skinny stack.
Boyd and P. Ryan, there it is. No one's going to have that combo. That will be super, super unusual to see. What's your Millie skinny stack, Burns?
Oh, man. Give me a second. I'll think about it.
Yeah, give a minute to think about it. All right. Throwing that at you on a dime that's a big ask. So let's talk a little bit of tight end. And my Millie maker, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is we are likely especially in the 4-gamer, we are once again very likely to see a tight end in the flex. I've been talking about this, and it's been winning. By the way, have we not mentioned this? And it wins. The shorter the slate, the fewer the games, the higher the likelihood that the tight end is going to be in the flex. Do not limit them, and don't worry about clicking the button on a tight end in the flex, people. Good. It's good. Tight end flex is good. So with that being said, one of the challenges with Travis Kelsey outside of stacking with Mahomes is just that he needs to outscore every other tight end. That is the first prerequisite for being 8K. He's going to have to outscore the rest of them, which is not a big ask, but is an ask. And there are some other good tight ends on the slate that can easily pop, but Kelsey needs to outscore them all. I think he's the highest likelihood of any tight end to score 20 fantasy points, but not necessarily supremely more likely to be the highest scorer on the slate per se. So Travis Kelsey, safe or unsafe? Is it unsafe because you're paying so much and he's got to get you a giant score to pay off? Or is it safe because he's Travis Kelsey and in his worst day, he's probably getting you a 15?
I think it's safe. I mean, he's a beast, 7,700. I think he could outscore any of these wide receivers easily. So the strategy for me is pay up at running back, and then you have space for Kelsey in the flex. And then you could pay down a little bit at wide receiver just because there's so many options significantly lower in price range. So I mean, hard not to love Kelsey.
I like that you mentioned as a flex because that is probably the correct way to think about it, right? You still need a cheap tight end or you just can't make a lineup.
Yep.
That's the double tight end scenario. You can't pass up Evan Ingram or Dalton Schultz or Dallas Goedert for 4,200. You just can't. One of those guys is generally going to have a good game, and they're generally going to smash salary-based expectations. Sometimes two of them will do it, but definitely one, or likely at least one of them will get there. Burns, what does the Shark Lab say about the tight end position this week?
We'll be all over Goddard, Schultz, Knox. They're in the best spots matchup wise for a lot less salary than Kelsey. If there was a strategic fade on the slate, and we see it time and time again, and we saw it last week, we saw it over Thanksgiving. When you see a tight end who is the highest salaried tight end, and he's also the highest owned tight end on the slate, the strategic fade is to fade them. Now, we have seen it not only in those slates, but it's been seen in multiple other slates throughout the years. And it's probably going to happen again this weekend. It's just history. It's historical evidence that we utilize to make predictions based off of past events. And if you think that Kelsey, who scored 20 points in week 10 in the same spot game, he can do that and be the highest scoring tight end, then you need to load up on him. Or you need to take the approach that, when we fade, we don't necessarily X him out of our player pool. We just lower the ownership that we have in him. So if you have, say he's 30% owned and you go to 20% owned, and he actually only scores 15 in this game, which is a possibility. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. And he kills 30, 40% of lineups, and you're actually sitting there pretty with a Goddard Schultz or a Goddard Knox lineup, then I think you are going to be well ahead of the field. So that's basically how you have to approach tight ends this week. It's pretty cut and dry, I guess. Skinny stack, I'm going to go with Juju Smith-Schuster, and I'm going to run it back with Zay Jones as a skinny stack.
That is skinny. That's very skinny.
Collected 300 pounds between the two of them, right?
To your point on Kelsey, he not only needs to put up a big number, he needs the other guys to not put up a big number, and that's the second. There's a component of it that's out of his control. We know that Dawson Knox can put up 25 in the right circumstance. We know that Evan Ingram has done it multiple times this year, as has Schultz, and I would argue that Dallas Goedert is identical to those guys, even though he was injured and we really didn't quite see those types of games out of him. But a 20 is not even hard to imagine. So, yeah, there's just too many good tight ends to load up and go crazy on Kelsey for double the price. Like
one note on him. Once you're done, Geek.
Yeah, I mean, it's just too many. Now, am I mentioning Hayden Hurst in this group? No, fuck Hayden Hurst. He's not putting up 20. And neither is Bellinger. Enough with those guys. But the other ones, they have a real shot. Like and Knox is more questionable to me. It's Schultz and Ingram and Goddard. These are actual studs. Knox is all right, I'm stacking him with Josh Allen guy more than anything else. But those other three are studs. They're all primary target weapons in their offense. They're guys who should be treated as a WR 2 or 1 or whatever. So all three of them could outscore Kelsey. And I love Kelsey as well, but he comes at a cost. The cost of Kelsey, so we understand what we're talking about, is the cost is the difference between Kadarius Toney and Stephon Diggs in your lineup. Like that is a big difference at wide receiver. I got Diggs or you got Tony. All right, you got Kelsey, I got Goddard. Fine. What happened? Well, Diggs went up for 30. Tony got a 12. You know what I'm saying? Kelsey got 25, but Goddard got me 22. Well, I'm ahead of you by 20 points on the exact same price. So that's really what it's just a little math combination. The opportunity cost of Kelsey is the difference between Juju Smith-Schuster and Jamar Chase. Like, that's a big difference. Juju sometimes gets you a 4. Chase sometimes gets you a 50. It's a big difference to me, and that opportunity cost is something you have to keep in mind. We can't just go like, oh, he's Kelsey, he's great. I'm locking the button. He is great. He is Kelsey, but the scenario, Kelsey can do great and still you lose because Schultz did great also, and you got Tony and I got Diggs, and that's how it goes. What were you going to say, BobbyWow?
One more nugget on Kelsey. The playoffs are where your Travis Kelsey's step up. No matter how poorly they've done throughout the season or the last couple of games. Over his last 6 playoff games, Travis Kelsey is averaging almost 10 catches a game, over 100 yards a game, and in those 6 games has 7 total touchdowns. So just to throw that out there for Travis Kelsey, he has been a beast in the playoffs.
I like it. He's massive. I mean, he's an awesome play every week, right? But he has his weeks where he just doesn't pay off, and it hurts your lineups. So I'm just a little hesitant on the 30 to 35% range for him. I mean, it's fine, I'm just going to be way over the field on Chase, and I'm going to be way over the field on the WR1s that are at the top end of the salary, like Lamb and stuff. I love Kelsey every week, but he's so hard to afford and get all these other guys in there too.
Especially, and again, I'll bring it back to, especially in a scenario on both slates where you kind of want to pay up for like Christian McCaffrey or like an elite running back because the rest of the running back group does not look attractive. So when you have a luxury running back in there, it's even harder to put a luxury tight end. So it's one of those things, and it's just one of those things you got to be careful about. I agree. I think Kelsey's floor is a 17. Like, he's having a good game no matter what. Even in a bad game, he's having a good game. He's really just fighting with Schultz and Goddard and Evan Ingram for, like, they can have a good game too for cheaper.
Yep.
Comes down to that. So he's got a lot of chips stacked against him to get to the nuts lineup. And again, the chips, some of them are out of his control or out of the control of how much he scores because those other guys can just score a lot also. Do you guys have interest? I know I had a little fun ripping on Hayden Hurst earlier. Do we need to go to the turd zone with these tight ends and have Turd Ferguson or any of these guys or even in the 2-game, or should we, because there are actually quite good tight ends on the slate, should we just focus on those guys? Like, hey, how are we dealing with this?
I'm going to stick to the guys that I know can actually get us the fantasy points that we need to win slates. That's your Kelsey, that's your Ingram, your Schultz, your Goddard, and your Knox. And that's it. Everybody else on this slate is basically not relevant for my lineups.
Can we play a no correlation QB? I'm going to say no. No. There's no evidence that you shouldn't, that a QB without any stack at all will win a tournament. I would say no. I would say borderline no chance that will win something. BobbyWow, any final thoughts on the tight end position?
I'm unchecking everyone below Hayden Hurst. And
wait. You're leaving Hayden Hurst checked?
I am. I'll be at 10%. All right, I'm not going nuts, but gotta leave him checked. He's the cheapest viable tight end, so that's why he's fine. It's fine. I totally get that, but you will have to pry Evan Ingram out of my flex spot. So
I love it.
He is. I mean, to me, he's the best play on the slate. I love Evan Ingram.
Loves me some Evan Ingram too. By the way, and just real quick on it, and we'll briefly touch on the defense. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but just like real briefly with Evan Ingram, this dude had the drops with the Giants, like he could not catch a football, and it went on for years.
I know.
And now he's out here looking like Larry Fitzgerald reincarnated. He's catching one hand. He's like, whew, one hand. Doesn't even need to bring in the second. He's running with it. I'm like, who are you? What is it? How is it possible? Like, he just goes to Jacksonville. The sun? Is it the warmth? What changed?
He's looking like he did when he played for Ole Miss. My God, he looks so good now. When he played for the Giants, it was pitiful.
This is a 7-year player. He's not a new entity, and he was dropping passes. 5 years worth of it. I kept thinking, like, next year that's not going to happen, and it happened again.
Yeah,
good for him, man. I that's so much of sports is psychological. Like, you're dropping a pass. Too. That's not because this man doesn't know how to catch a football. That's literally all he's done in his entire life is catch footballs. He knows how to catch one.
It's atmosphere. It could be, he's in the right offensive scheme now too.
I'm working on a video, Frank. We'll see. It's not up to me. I got to get Anthony. So hopefully we'll get one together. If not, though, what I will do is I always talk to Anthony before the games. So what I'll do, like I did last week, like I always do, is if we can't do a full Wise Guys show, I will give out, I'll talk to Anthony and we'll give out, of course, our favorite plays for the NFL bets for the NFL weekend for our friends in the Sharp App Discord who are Sharp App Pro subscribers. And remember, if you do not have a Sharp App membership, you want betting advice and tools and all the great stuff, promo code ARMY on sharp.app gets you a free month. Check it out. All right. I kind of did a Players Club yesterday, John. I'll probably do another one, though, but I kind of did a version of the Players Club yesterday, so make sure you check that out. All right, so defense here, real quick, guys. I know, BobbyWow, you got to run soon, but just looking at the overall, I think, are any defensive plays standing out for you, Burns?
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers, I love the 49ers. I like Dallas on the other side. I really like Philadelphia in this game.
Eagles.
I think Philadelphia is they could do some damage in this game on the defensive side. And then the other, I'm not too high on Buffalo. The Giants, no. Bengals, maybe if you have to go there. The other one is Kansas City. I really like KC in this game. This game's going to go one of two ways. Jacksonville keeps it close, and Kansas City pulls out one at the, where they have to score, and Mahomes does it, and he does it with Kelsey, or he does it with Juju, or he does it with Tony, or this game could be a complete blowout. So I don't know. I really like Jacksonville. I love Lawrence. Don't get me wrong. I think they're going to be good. So
I'll explain the Chiefs one, and it's very simple. If Lawrence has another kind of like a mental collapse at the early game and 4 interceptions, then the Eagles are going to get you there. It's that simple. You have to have some exposure because the player has shown that he has a propensity to do it. I've unfriended 2 of the defenses that I think are the least likely to have any chance of putting up any kind of numbers. Giants and Jaguars don't need any of that. For me. I don't need it. Giants, Jaguars? Hell no. Bengals, I think I have to leave in there because Josh Allen's just throwing interceptions lately, just like willy-nilly for no reason. I still can't believe how much money Josh Allen cost me last week by that pitiful, disgusting performance against a Miami team that didn't have a quarterback. Allowing them to put up 31 based on turnovers, disgusting.
You don't even want to know how close, how much money.
I lost a lot of money. I put more in my bets last weekend because I was so sure. I had basically Bills minus 6.5. I all lined it and I included it with almost every bet.
This is how close I was to doing really well in the Millie Maker. Had I had played Miami Dolphins defense, I would have been in the top 10.
Yeah, no, I did the same thing. I went back and rewound my lineups. I had unfriended Miami. I checked them back in, and it was nuts. It was horrible.
And
it was a rough one.
It was a hand-built lineup.
Yeah. It was rough. I went into the Dom. You know how you could do that little changey thing where I just changed the player and I just swapped in the other defense, the Miami, and I was like, oh, there it is. Fuck, yep. I hit it, but they weren't going to show up. BobbyWow, any last thoughts?
Same thoughts for me. I don't know that I'm unchecking the Giants. I think I'm going to keep them in, but man, Josh Allen is turning the ball over a ton. So Yeah, I kind of like the Bengals defense, but I'm in the same boat as you guys.
Yeah.
Nothing major different.
And Bills defense is cheap, and Bengals can get sacked a little bit. I don't think it's going to go that way. I think it'll be a Joe Cool kind of game, but
he's going to be running for his life, Geek. His offensive line is decimated.
Yeah, it's been like that all year. But it's kind of been that way all year. All right, guys, let's wrap it up there. Great show, really exciting. 4-game slate, 2-game slates. Make sure that you check out some of the back streams I've done, the back test streams I've done for 2-game slates to understand how to, if you're going to attack this with the optimizer and you're going to do 150, which I think is the best way to attack a 2-game slate. It's really hard to like play cash game. I don't like it. It's like a showdown. Cash games are a little weird. It's not the best format for it. If you're going to attack it the right way, mass multi-entry, FanDuel's got nickel games and dime games. Don't tell me how much it costs. I don't care. There's MME for everybody. There's 150 lineup entries, 50 cents on DraftKings or however much they charge. So there's lots of ways to 150 this. See if you can take down a tournament. That's what I recommend. And beyond that, good luck this weekend. Diversify, watch the ownerships, play ownership leverage as always. And, that's what the show's all about, leverage. So hopefully we can see some more DFS Army helmets at the top of the leaderboards. If you guys aren't signed up for DFS Army and you want to check out the optimizer and all that good stuff, we have a really cool thing here where you can get a free offer. You get like a free month of DFS Army when you sign up for any of these sites, Monkey Knife Fight, Prize Picks, Owner's Box, any of these. And we have amazing tools for these sites as well, especially Prize Picks and Underdog. So if you want to check out a free month of DFS Army, go to free offer on the DFS Army website. Check out this form. Sign up for one of these sites. Follow the instructions. Just follow the instructions, and we'll get you a code for a free month of DFS Army access.
And don't forget the free month of Sharp too.
Yeah, free month of Sharp app as well. If you want to check that out, sharp.app. Promo code Army gets you 1 month free. We're going to have all the bets for this weekend. It's the playoffs. This month will take us all the way to the Super Bowl. And we're March Madness is around the corner, and it is glorious in the Sharp app. John Statsation Alessia breaks down March Madness like no one else in the industry. His write-up is just spectacular. So I always follow it.
Amazing.
That's going to do it for this one, guys. For Bobby Millions, for Burns, for myself. We'll be back one more time. We're going to do it again next week. But we'll see you at the top of the leaderboards. Take care, everybody.